senators who was in that closed-door meeting was Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. He joins me now. Senator, thank you for taking a few minutes. So the political reality here of trying to get a new authorization specific to the war against ISIS instead of relying on something from 13 years ago. The White House is saying it doesn't need it. The top Republican is saying even debating it would divide the country. Is there any realistic prospect for a new AUMF?
Well, Steve, I think we should be taking up and debating a new authorization of the use of military force against ISIS. We're more than a year, almost 15 months into this conflict. And now that President Obama has deployed 50 Special Forces troops into Syria, has announced his plans to proceed with that on-the-ground troop deployment, I think it's even more urgent than ever. I respect Senator Corker's concern that if we had a divisive debate, that there might be some misunderstanding on the part of our enemies or our allies about whether we as a country are determined and united. But I think that's part of our role as senators. We have a constitutional role in Congress to look squarely in the eye at the hard questions of when and whether we should go to war. There's 2.5 million veterans, Steve, of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And one of the issues I've raised in our debates last year about the AUMF is the cost. There was no provision made for how to pay for the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I think we owe it to the American people, to our veterans, and to those we're sending into harm's way to have a clear-eyed and searching debate about strategy, about cost, and about the legal authorization for this conflict against ISIS.
Well, I want to ask you about what's going on the ground and in the air in Syria right now as that debate over whether there should be a debate over an AUMF plays out. There was a striking moment in the debate, the Republican presidential debate last night, where Rand Paul, who has these sort of non-interventionist views, he took his fellow Republicans on stage to task and also at the same time Hillary Clinton to task over the issue of a no-fly zone, saying, look, Hillary and too many Republicans support this. He says a no-fly zone would be a disaster because if you impose one and Russia doesn't respect it, Russia doesn't violate it, what do? Do you shoot down a Russian plane? Do you start a war over it? What do you say to that concern that Rand Paul was raising over a potential no-fly zone?
I say Senator Paul has a legitimate concern. Syria has fairly advanced air defenses, and now with Russian top-flight, cutting-edge aircraft, they're helping enforce Syria's airspace, helping support the murderous regime of Bashar al-Assad on the ground and in the air. It would be more difficult, more conflicted than ever. Look, it is an extremely difficult situation in both Iraq and Syria. We have managed to roll back some of the gains that ISIS made last year. We've flown more than 7,000 sorties against ISIS targets, along with our coalition partners. But now that we've got both Iranian funding and troops and weapons on the ground and Russian troops and air cover, this is a very complex situation. I think we owe it to the American people to have a real debate about this in the run-up to the presidential campaign, because we should not sort of slouch into another significant war in the Middle East, sliding into it through steady escalation. I do support the president's efforts to pull together a global coalition. I think the explosion that brought down a Russian jetliner over the Sinai will likely be shown to have been an ISIS bomb. And I do think that now that there have been both American and Russian casualties, we should all be reflecting more closely on what the likely costs are of the conflict against ISIS and what the complex security implications are for us to be forced into some sort of a partnership on the ground with both Russia and Iran in trying to bring an end to the Assad regime. It's a very fluid and difficult situation, Steve, with big risks.
All right. Chris Coons, Senator from Delaware, thank you for joining us on this Veterans Day.